At dawn, the sun lifts above the horizon, bathing mankind in color and life. At dusk, it sinks beneath the edge of the world, casting all into darkness. While the sun shines on the realm of mortal kind, it is Ra that guides it. But at night, it is not Ra that moves the sun along its subterranean path, but Khepri, the scarab god, he who comes with the dawn. For the Dawnbringer, the sun is his sphere, and all souls, living and dead, his children. Khepri is a guardian, a protector, and most importantly, a friend. While usually content to stay aloof, Khepri has risen for battle to defend existence from this shattering war. He will fight to shield us until the final sunset, yet it is he that brings the dawn. I gotta keep it real, I am beyond happy to be making this video right now. So much to a point that I am powering through this winter-related sickness just to get this recording done. If y'all don't know already, Khepri is my favorite god in Smite 2, and in Smite 1 he was only behind Gep. But seeing the big beetle make his way into Smite 2, especially so early, it really is a blessing. Some might even say a scarab's blessing. But let's not get too caught up in the personal talk, let's focus up here. Khepri is the first true support to make his way into Smite 2, and for true support mains, this is a monumentous occasion. True supports like Khepri offer a different kind of dish to bring to the table, with a taste that you didn't know you liked until you tried it. Khepri isn't like the others, with the intention of starting big fights and wanting to cause chaos. With Khepri, you want to sit back, hang back with your carries, and make sure that they feel comfortable doing as they please. With all that being said, Khepri is definitely considered easy to learn but hard to master. But if you're looking to master the illuminating insect, your old pal Morty's got you covered. Khepri is known for being a tank, tried and true. The new addition to his second ability, Rising Dawn, lets Khepri buff himself as well as his allies with mitigations, and getting constant shields with Fortitude let Khepri soak up a lot of poke damage. Khepri also has Lockdown in his class roles due to having multiple hard CCs in his kit. Yes, it is worth bringing up Solar Flare's AoE root ability, but we mainly associate Lockdown with Khepri because of Abduct. It will keep enemies in place for seconds at a time. Seconds might not seem like a long time right now, but when you're in between Khepri's claws, it feels like a lifetime. Khepri also has buffs, which correlates to the fact that Khepri can provide buffs to his teammates. Khepri offers mitigation buffs with Rising Dawn, and Scarab's Blessing offers a lot of buffs on its own. What exactly are those buffs, you say? Let's dive into deeper detail of Khepri's abilities and find out. Khepri's passive is Fortitude. Every 5 seconds, Khepri emits a wave that shields himself and allies close to him for a percentage of their max health. That 5-second cooldown doubles if Khepri is in combat. Fortitude is a very simple yet effective passive, and it forces Khepri to position as a backliner and to play the game as someone with intentions of waiting for a threat to show itself rather than to go looking for a fight. Khepri's first ability is Abduct. Khepri dashes forward, charging through minions and monsters, and latches onto the first enemy god in his way. After clamping his claws onto the enemy god, Khepri proceeds to slowly walk backwards, dragging whoever is in his clutches. While under the effects of Abduct, that god cannot cast abilities or move whatsoever. That same enemy god can still use basic attacks, so if you want to grab someone, be sure that you have a good amount of health. If Khepri happens to be stunned or silenced during this grab, the crowd control ends early. Abduct can be used offensively to capitalize on a lone enemy god's poor positioning, or it can be used defensively if, say, a pesky Loki is trying to assassinate your backliners. At that point, you can hold Loki down as your team tears him to shreds. Man, do I hate going up against Loki. Sorry, that last scenario brought up some bad memories. Ugh. Khepri's second ability is Rising Dawn. Khepri rolls the sun forward. Man, that is crazy. Rolling the sun forward sounds epic when you put it into perspective like that. Khepri rolls the sun forward on a path, and at the end of the path, the sun sets, emitting a small wave around the end of the path. Rising Dawn affects both allies and enemies that are hit by the sun. Allies will gain a small percentage of damage mitigation for a couple of seconds, and enemies will take magical damage over time. Positioning the path to end at a good spot is crucial because the wave that emits when the sun sets will reapply effects to both enemies and allies. A new tech that is here with the Smite 2 version of Khepri is that Khepri can walk into that previously mentioned wave, and now he can gain that mitigation buff during combat. A measly mitigation buff might not seem like a huge change, but in the heat of the moment, it means a lot more than you would think. And coming from a Khepri player, you gotta trust me on this one. Khepri's third ability is Solar Flare. Khepri calls down this beam from the skies and the ground explodes shortly after the ability is casted. That explosion deals magical damage upon impact and roots enemy gods. Keep in mind that rooted gods can use all of their abilities and they can use basic attacks, but they cannot walk or run for that matter. This can be considered a good setup for Abduct or a follow-up to have an enemy god in place for even longer afterwards. Khepri's ultimate ability is Scarab's Blessing. Khepri selects an ally god and gifts him with, you guessed it, Scarab's Blessing. Scarab's Blessing does a lot, starting off with gifting that ally buffs to their strength, intelligence, and movement speed. Granting Scarab's Blessing to an ally immediately cleanses that friend of crowd control, so any stuns, roots, slows, anything like that disappears on the spot. But it doesn't just make them CC immune for the duration, it is just a cleanse, so keep that in mind. All good things so far, right? If an ally under the effects of Scarab's Blessing happens to fall to 0 health, instead of dying and going back to the fountain, they are revived on the spot. Yes, Khepri has a revive. Isn't that sick? After a couple of seconds, they are relocated to Khepri's position and then spawn back onto the map with a percentage of their health. That is an incredible asset to have on your team, a whole revive. However, there is a catch here. Any form of an execution, mainly being Thanatos' ultimate, Hovering Death, or Sobek's ultimate, Lurking in the Waters, will completely negate the revive part of Scarab's Blessing. Now, usually when we get to this point in the video, I like to tell y'all a couple different roles that this god can be played in. For example, during the Sobek video, I mentioned how Sobek is very proficient in the support role, but also makes for a pretty good solo laner. But in Khepri's case, he isn't very flexible as far as where he goes. He's good at one thing and one thing only: support. Now, this might not seem like a good thing at first, but let me nip that in the bud real quick. Khepri's entire kit is based around being a support, which to me means, well dang, he's gotta be one heck of a support, and that he is. His playstyle variety of being a skirmish starter or a butt hugger with his abilities, you kinda just get the best of both worlds, and that to me sounds like a W. Early game is very matchup dependent. Not every lane is gonna go the same, and you can be aggressive if you have a Khepri that can back it, but some matchups require Khepri to be a butt hugger, meaning that you're ready to put down a threat as opposed to being one. On the right side of the screen, you can see some items that work great for Khepri support. These items have some great passives as well as 3 big stats that every Khepri needs. Cooldown rate is huge. You need to have this so you can keep laying down crowd control and reviving your allies often. Health capacity is nice as well. This helps stack with Fortitude Shield becoming larger and making Khepri just a tad bit bigger. And of course, you need to get some protections. Every support needs them. So here's an example of how to play Khepri offensively and set up picks for your team through crowd control. As I walk up through the middle lane, I notice our Neith is coming out of the jungle and looking to get some damage off on this Nuwa. Neith casts Unweave to get some decent damage off, and Nuwa reacts by dumping her whole kit at this Neith. This leaves me and Anubis to do whatever we want at this point. I cast Solar Flare looking to lock her down and let Anubis finish the job, but she reacts by casting her ultimate and jumping into the sky. All of the protections from the items that I've built so far, along with the shielding from Fortitude, let me tank these tower shots like it's nothing. Meaning that Nuwa is still going to have to deal with us whenever she lands. As soon as she lands, I use Abduct to grab her and hold her in place, while Anubis uses Death Gaze to melt her health bar. And right as this middle lane tower is about to kill me, I cast Scarab's Blessing upon myself, revive myself so I can walk out scotch-free. It might have taken some extreme resources on our end, but from Nuwa, we made her use her ultimate, we pulled her relic, and we took her life. That's a W in my book. So here I am walking through the middle lane again, and I'm looking to join a party that I'm a little bit late to. Keep in mind that Nuwa uses her ultimate right here. We need to make a mental note of this. Our Pele is going to grab the first kill of the fight and then back off to the left side of the enemy jungle. Neith and Anubis are going to have no problem cleaning up and getting a second kill in the fight, but that leaves Nuwa all alone by herself under that tower. Nuwa seems to think that we won't dive her under tower, so she decides to recall right there. Thankfully, Neith isn't going to let that happen. She pops her ultimate and fires it onto Nuwa to keep her from going back to base. Now that I'm here and postured in the front line, let's take a look at the situation. Nuwa has no means of escape here. We just saw her use her ultimate about 15 seconds ago. And her relic is still down from the last time we killed her in the last clip that I just showed y'all. We can also see that Pele backed off from the fight a little bit earlier, but she didn't fully retreat. She in fact set herself up for a gank on the left side. All of these things together means that this Nuwa is very easy pickings. Time to go for the kill. I use Abduct to charge forward for 2 reasons. One, I want to start tanking these tower shots as soon as possible, that way Pele doesn't take any more damage than she has to. I also need to get into range to cast Solar Flare, that way I can offer a little more damage and root this Nuwa in place, so Pele has easy pickings. Thor does pop up at the last second, but he's far too late to make anything happen. He's severely outnumbered and he has no idea how to react to this situation. So let's look at our 3, 3, and 3. This is 3 gods that Khepri does well with, 3 gods that Khepri fares well against, and then 3 gods that Khepri does not fare well against. Khepri operates very well with aggressive carries, and when I was writing this script, Danzaburou was the first one that came to mind, but there's good reason for that. Khepri's long CC chain lets Danzaburou fire off his abilities very quickly, so there's potential for early aggression. Danza also suffers from lack of self-reliability. He doesn't have a backflip like Neith or a disperse like Anhur. He needs a little more help handling threats, and Khepri's peel potential fits that perfectly. Zeus is in the same boat as Danzaburou. He has so much damage potential, but sometimes has a problem getting that damage off. Khepri can make sure that Zeus remains comfortable doing as he pleases throughout the game. On another note, one thing that Khepri can't do well is engage huge team fights. That being said, your solo laner needs to fill that gap with a huge engage tool. Chaac ult does exactly that, and everything else in his kit just works. The healing from Rain Dance lets Chaac frontline alone, and his damage from other abilities makes sure that he doesn't go unnoticed. So while Chaac does frontline things, you can be the pocket support you've always wanted to be. Mordred might be an honorable mention here. He kind of does the same thing Chaac does optimally, but he sacrifices survivability for damage. Khepri works well against Fenrir. He has a lot of counterplay should Fenrir decide to dive the backline. Abduct can take Fenrir out of his third ability, Brutalize, which really hurts his damage potential. The Cleanse from Scarab's Blessing can also free someone from the clutches of Ragnarok, which is Fenrir's ultimate. These 2 things alone make Fenrir a lot less useful up against a skilled Khepri. Loki suffers from the same kind of thing, more or less. Finally, we have a counter for Loki. I know that some of y'all are jumping for joy right now. Well, it might not be a massive counter, but there's a few favorable factors for Khepri to enjoy with this matchup. Flurry strikes can be interrupted by Abduct, and Loki doesn't have much counterplay for Khepri's revive. I'm not saying that this is unplayable for Loki here, but his job is going to be a lot harder with the illuminating insect in the way. Bellona's also going to have a bit of a hard time up against Khepri. Khepri's first and third, along with some shielding from Fortitude and a bit of body blocking along the way, all of this will give your carry enough time to melt Bellona's health bar. The only thing you need to be wary of as a Khepri here is Bellona's ultimate Eagle's Rally. She can use that to dodge your CC as well as get out of Solar Flare. That being said, if you can bait out Eagle's Rally with just a Solar Flare, that's a huge dub in my book. Now, Khepri does not fare well up against Zeus. His abilities like Chain Lightning and Lightning Storm punish Khepri for playing like the hand-holding pocket support that he is. Another one that has to be mentioned is Thanatos. The execute factor on his ultimate, Hovering Death, tears right through the revive from Scarab's Blessing. Thanatos also has a silence on his third ability that, if used correctly, can stop his allies from getting yanked by Abduct. This is a god that doesn't let Khepri play offensively or defensively. And the worst counter you can run into is Sobek. Sobek is the absolute worst. His early game damage is incredible, and his displacement with Charge Prey and Tail Whip will make sure that you can't get away. Both of those abilities also disrupt Abduct. Unless you constantly hang out under tower, get ready to be first blooded. And to make matters worse, Sobek has his Execute, which, you guessed it, completely negates the revive part of Scarab's Blessing. All that being said, Sobek might be the picture-perfect counter to Khepri. Alright friends, that is all for me as of today. I'm going to head on out, but I wanted to let y'all know, thank you, truthfully and legitimately, from the bottom of my heart, if you made it this far. I hope you learned some new things, and I hope that you just found your new favorite support. I will see y'all very soon, so don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon. Thanks y'all.